All right, first item of agenda, scheduling and holidays. We will not have an official stand-up on this Friday or next. All of next week will be off as far as the Suffolk folks are concerned. Obviously, if people want to make individual, I mean, people will still be puttering around doing stuff, I'm sure, but we won't have stand-ups. Yes, I do believe, but Michelle has expressed that she will be present for a casual Friday on Christmas. So the channel will be open if people want to jump in and say hi on Christmas Day at 1 as normal. And I suppose the channel will also be open at next, on New Year's. Interesting, on New Year's, if people want to slowly wake up and then and pop in at 1.
Perfect times.
I'm sorry, I'm seeing multiple things.
Should we
take over,
Yeah.
David?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's
worries.
stuff about the lab, and it was I thought it was going to be relevant, and it kind of is, but kind of isn't. All right. So yeah, scheduling. That's the main thing. The other one is I have a talk later today to talk with the Access Justice Commission folks about appeals stuff, which I think is all just like touching in and like that's going well. And then we have a meeting scheduled for like we come back in January to talk about the 209A and see if we can in any way move things along with the court. So those are things that I've got cooking. Other than that, I think that's the main points I wanted to share. What do other folks have? Bryce, you're next on my boxes.
I don't have any management related things at the moment. Are we also doing just stand-up, merge stand-up, or?
Why don't we go through management first, and then we can loop
Okay.
back around for stand-up.
Cool. In that case, nothing.
Quentin.
Well, I think we have a couple things that we could do as our agenda today, right? Like we had the
we're going to talk about roles, weren't we?
And names for user roles. There's like a subtopic there, which I think I'm all set. But maybe our discussion will inform it. So I don't think, let's see. And I've just been looking over, as I was thinking about, like our big thing is we're moving everything to new repositories. All of the dependencies are getting upgraded basically. And we're going to do it by forking. So the old stuff will continue to work as is, but we want to try to take this chance to fix some of the things without doing like a huge refactor. But mostly it's just separating code and adding new things, new features. So hopefully relatively safe. But as I'm doing that, I'm looking at our Trello boards and I'm wondering what the state we want them to have at the beginning of next semester. How will we pick out the forms that are ready, see if people are further along or not as far along as they thought they were. Definitely as I was reviewing my students' work, I was like adding GitHub issues. I tried to reassure them that it was not part of their grade. So, but anyway, like how are we going to look at the work we have and make sure we can use it and continue to benefit from it? Or was it all learning exercises are fine too, but I think we probably have more progress there than just a learning exercise. So how can we take advantage of it and prepare for maybe getting a new batch of things started in the spring?
All good questions. Any thoughts?
I mean, there's certainly work to be done in documentation and things like that, and that could move things ahead. And Bryce has done some, I won't volunteer Bryce. Bryce can volunteer for whatever he wants. and people did seem to use the documentation one way or another, which is very encouraging, I suppose, because they're all law students and that's what law students do. So like, I don't think it would be a, wasted effort in that way.
Well, I'm thinking about how can we make sure the forms are really ready to launch. So we talked about a couple times that there are things that need to be done
Oh,
to get most of them ready to go. We also had our new target for launch, which is, a level 1 form for most of these cases. So like that's one idea. Like we have a showcase spot on the form site, which is like, hey, these are the forms which you can use. They're useful, but they're not our polished ones. And we err on the side of putting almost everything up. The other way is to go through all of the forms in a lot more detail and to review them and see how close they are and what things are blocking them, focusing just on the level 1 and level 1.5 features. So that's the part I'm talking about, not really like documenting what
got it.
did, but seeing, kind of sifting through and seeing what needs to be done.
Got it. Do you think it would be useful at all to have like 2 categories of forms, one which need more examination and one which can just be put out as is? I mean, someone's going to have to at least run through them, right? And then like beyond that, are there ones that need more examination versus ones that need less? Otherwise, if they pass, we can make criteria for what qualifies as a sufficient, sufficient form, like, most, you check like 3 paths, and if it survives 3 paths, then, then it's ready, or, or they all have to have review screens, or they none of them, or whatever.
They do need a certain level of like legal accuracy too.
Yeah, I do like the idea of making sure that things are really to level 1 before we put them out, as opposed to just erring on like a showcase. So I think that extra work is worthwhile, just because of the reputational, potential reputational damage of putting something out that's not quite. But I don't think that means we need to do like I think we need to just make sure we actually do a level 1 evaluation.
Do we want to maybe define what levels of evaluation as well as levels of form?
Well, I think it is, and the evaluation part is inherent in the level 1, because it means that we don't have to worry as much about things like, we're not necessarily worrying about plain language. We're just making sure that it actually, with fidelity, replicates the ability of filling out the paper form. Obviously, I think there's some bidding that can go on originally, at least for the student forms like Quentin and mine, where there will be those that actually seem to work through multiple paths, and those that, throw an error or do something. And we can, we can definitely bifurcate that into like, here are the ones that upon first blush look like they're worth looking, that look like they're close to being there. I think what we could do is prioritize those, and then probably get by with a very quick review, just to make sure that, as you said, do something like a 3 pass through or something, and then like 1 just passed by a an SME of some type. And it could just be like a generic like lawyer SME, if not a predictor or practice area one, since we're just talking about replicating the forms.
Maybe a checklist of like who has tested it for this kind of thing, so that we don't lose track of which ones need what kind of review.
Well, I think what we need is just a person to be in charge of it. I don't think it will work spontaneous organization. So I think what we need are the resources. We need someone to organize and coordinate this kind of review, people to do testing, people to be subject experts, and potentially someone to help with the testing, which would probably just involve creating labels and installing all the packages, short names rather, and installing them on the server. Those are probably like some of those seem like particularly technical things. I don't think we have, but we probably will identify like things that are DocAssemble bugs. But I bet, what do we have, like 30 or so forms that are in that state. And I think we'll probably find 15 at least that can go up as is once we've gone through all those vetting steps,
That's probably
or
right.
with very small changes, maybe.
When you, Quentin, can you just say, you said you've got 30 that are in that state and 15 that can probably go up right away. That state meaning little things that need to be fixed. I wasn't sure what that state is.
That's a good point. So I'm doing a really rough estimate. So I could actually look and see, like, say 1, 2, 3.
Because I mean, the other thing is, I suppose there's there's some sort of relationship between issues and the Trello card, right? So some of those, we asked students to add, they've added issues that need to be done before, that need to be addressed before the form goes live. And those may not be on the Trello card, but they should be on the issues. I don't know if they used MVP or enhanced, but I suspect that if there were a way to cruise through, not all of them, but some of the issues that might save you having to go through the, if the issue says these things need, if the issues for a form say these things need to be done before it can go live, then you don't have to look at that right this
That's true.
first round through is what I'm saying. And I
Oh,
know
good
that
point.
there were a few forms that the things did need to be addressed before they were live.
I think it's good. Although my suspicion is that those forms that were sufficiently labeled to say something like that are the people who they're further along.
This is probably true.
My guess is that the forms that are going to need the most look will probably not have documented as many issues. But I think that's right. I think it is right for those that are documented that way. Those are an easy pass.
I'm just saying those might be some that we can just check on. We have a list of everything that's on GitHub. And we can have a quick look and say, okay, those aren't ready yet. And just, have some sort of, put them aside. And then that way you don't have to look at every single one.
Quentin and I will have looked at a good fraction of them in some amount of detail during grading. So we should be able to say, at least if it's in the bucket of like, let's do this for more review. Or, you feel like you'd be able to make that determination, right, Quentin?
Yeah, I caught one error where the form couldn't complete on through my passes. So I think their forms are in pretty good shape. But I definitely noticed things like where I would do it differently. It's a different question.
I feel like with the family law forms, they're all short forms. Like I feel like substantively I could look at a form like an interview pretty quickly and tell you
it's like
there's a major substantive issue with it.
It's like 15-minute review, I
Yeah.
think we'll probably be able to get through most because most of them are like 1 pages.
I'm happy to do that I know a bunch of them are family law. Happy to look at.
Well, maybe
They're quick. They're all doing like quick kind of basic family law forms.
Can we use any of the tags in GitHub to allocate them to different areas so people who could go through them quickly would know? Or
Well,
do you think we don't need to do that?
No, I think I think on Trello, but I think we could totally do that.
On Trello, not on GitHub. Okay.
I think on Trello because it'll be easier for us to see what's
and sort them kind of quickly. And yeah, gotcha.
Do we want to use labels or lists? And should I maybe just make another list, which is
I would think you'd want to use labels.
Well, labels are good, but if our goal is
Labels
to say
are like
that
tags, right?
Labels are like tags, but
yeah.
The lists are like it's being coded, it's being tested, it's getting.
I see what you're saying. You would move those so those cards would live in the list. I guess that does make sense, really.
Okay.
They're already in lists now, right?
They're already in lists, yeah. So I'll add a 2.10 form is ready to install.
You want to say phase 1 or whatever you call it, level 1, because you're going to have. Or are you going to have?
Well, what should I?
More lists because
I could just make it like a fall review, like give it some specific timing.
Or maybe it could just move. I guess then it could just go through do we need a checklist like Michelle was saying for what these need to have? I mean, I guess the thing is Kate can just do the family ones, right? You'll know if the form completes, you'll know if it's legally accurate, right? And so, and you know where to find them, right? You go to GitHub and find them.
Yeah, but I
Or-
don't know how to like run it as an interview.
Right. What do we have on the development or the test server, Quentin, do we have that list of interviews? So Kate could just go to that page and click the family law ones?
They haven't all been installed on the server though. So like, I guess that's like a pre-step. I guess that's a really good point. So let's see. Maybe we can make a
it would be
checklist.
much easier for me.
That's
Yeah.
why I was
Done.
saying if they're tagged, so if they have the labels, then she can whip through them and decide what, move the ones to the list. Like if she say you're using Trello, so then you label all the family law ones family, then Kate can see this, she can get a collection of all the family ones that are labeled family law. As she goes through them, if they're ready to go, if they're phase one, she can move them to the list. If they're not, she just, I don't know what you want her to do with them. Just
I don't know,
leave them
make
where
a
they
GitHub
are.
issue.
Make a GitHub.
Ah.
That's a lot of work, Kate.
I've done GitHub issues.
No, I mean, given, I don't know how many forms there are.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
might have a number of issues there. And some of those issues might already be there. You might not have to make a GitHub issue.
Yeah.
Issues might already be there.
That's true. Well, that's a really good point. So I think maybe every form is supposed to have a link to the GitHub issue on it already.
The GitHub
Uh,
form is supposed to have a link to
Every
card?
Trello card should
Card?
have a
Oh.
link. It's one of our checklist items linked to the GitHub issues. I don't know that
Oh,
everyone.
issues, right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that's there and on the form, there's a link that lets you create an issue. So that issue link is specific to each form now, as long as it's installed on the server.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be pretty simple. But the other thing is we're also looking for just pass fail right now. We want to see like, hey, can we get 5 forms live?
Yeah.
I just checked. There's about 30 forms that are on board 2. And I suspect most of those are not being worked on anymore. So it's like, we should just make them live or say, okay, those are going to go in some backlog and we'll get to them again later. We might want to put like another staging buffer for all the ones that have been like started but aren't complete.
Do we have a list of those anywhere?
No, I mean, that's the thing. That's the work. The work is like
Yeah.
sifting through all the work that people did in the
And then how to indicate it so people can know what it means, right?
Yeah, and we could put, so I don't know, since people aren't working on these anymore for most of the forms, they're done. Some people are like, hey, I want to keep working on that, and that's great. And I will encourage them to do that if they really want to next semester. But I think we can safely assume like it doesn't actually have a lot of value to put a card halfway through the board. If really what needs to happen is someone needs to kind of look it over from the beginning again. Like, I mean, they've gone through the coding phase, so we wouldn't put it before the coding phase. Like generating code, we would skip that step. But if someone came back onto it, like, okay, it had a review 6 months ago, you might still want to do it again. I don't know. That's too detailed of a step here, sorry. But what we really want to do is just sift through all of the existing work and see what is ready to go and what's not. So so Kate, like you would not have to go through and add issues for everything that's wrong with the form. If there are 30 forms and they all have things that will stop them from going live, we might go through and say, let's prioritize the ones that are closest and see what we can do to push them over the top.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think there was a wide variety, I think, of in kind of where they are.
And I know that I still have to go through, I haven't started wading through my students yet. So I will, by the 4th, have such a list.
Do
for mine.
you guys, David and Quentin, do you have any family law forms from your classes?
I have a
Definitely
lot of
did.
housing. I feel like there's probably 1 or 2.
I know I met with a bunch of students about family law forms.
Right. So, I mean, the thing, Kate, I mean, since Quentin and David have to do this for grading and marking, it makes sense for them to look at them before you look at them.
Yeah.
Right, this is, they've got to do them anyway, and then
I wouldn't
maybe
even
they
know where to
could-
look.
Yeah, so maybe they could indicate when they've looked at them.
Well, we would
If
drag
they
them into
think
this new,
if you guys think they're, sorry, David, what? Sorry.
we just drag them into this new channel.
Right,
So then, and
yeah.
pull them out of this channel.
So
for-
Kate's got to look at them, so they can go in the ready to go list, the 2.10 or 2.0 or whatever it is. And then Kate has to look at them to make sure. She has to sign off on them or something. If you guys think they're ready to go, then Kate has to review them to make sure. And then they're all in one place for her. Except
so I'm
for
thinking that-
going to the server, except for going to the server and finding them.
So I think that place will be like a buffer on board 2.
Mhm.
We haven't really figured out how to use board 3 yet. That's another thing we could talk about at some point. I'm gonna get rid of this court review. Well, I'll keep that, but. All right. So what I will do is I'll go through and pull in all the cards from my students that I think someone else should review and decide, 'cause I don't want to just be the only person to decide that. There's one where I know there's a bug, which I think will be very small and easy to fix. Maybe I'll fix that. But what I would say is like, let's, should we label the cards when they don't, are not ready to go live?
They're just
That's
gonna
what I
end
was-
up in a backlog at some point, right? So maybe
Yeah.
the point is they go into a backlog.
Have a label backlog or have a card or a list or,
Well, a list would customarily a backlog would be in a list. Right, so we could have the ready for more people or the,
except they're in lists right now, right? Which
Yep.
tells you where they, so if you dump them into backlog, then you're not sure what, so
Yeah.
I think
we
the
could
thing is,
leave them where they are if they're, but at some point we've got to determine whether or not we want people to pick them up from there, or if
Yeah.
they need to sort of
I
be demoted.
I
back
think
to
it
the
makes
side.
sense to leave them where in the list where they are, label them as backlog. Because then at least if you are going to pick them up at some point, you know how far they've gotten. You know where they, at what stage they are and what you have left to do. Whereas if you take all of them and put them into backlog, then you've got to look, you've got to figure out, okay, how far did this interview get before it ended up in backlog?
Yeah, we lose the context. What if we
Yeah.
give them a label, not call them backlog, because that sort of gets confusing with the
Oh,
normal meaning. What if we call them, like, we come up with a status, which is like paused or not archived, but
interrupted.
something that's like not active, right? So we know that you can look and you can say, oh, this thing is not being actively worked. No one,
Oh,
it's sort of like
yeah.
they're orphaned. It's like no one's working on them right now.
I guess I'm
That's a good
realizing maybe we don't need a new
list.
list because we have 2.3 buffer. We have code interview, buffer, review with SME, buffer. And then we have some steps that we've been observing in the breach, which are like the plain language review, general team demo, which some folks did, but most people haven't moved their cards along that list, even though like a lot of people did the demo, for example. They didn't move their card to that list though.
Well, if they skip the plain language review, then what do you do that, because those are sort of, in a way they're linear on Trello, but they're not necessarily linear when people do them. They might have done
Right. So maybe the answer is there are a bunch of cards in like the buffer after review with SME. I guess that implies that they were done. But maybe we should tag the ones that have bugs. Were you thinking you didn't want to use bug, David, because it was like too negative?
Oh,
for people,
well, no,
or-
but bug could work. It's just that some of them aren't going to be. It might not be that there's a bug. It's just that they haven't gotten through. Right. I'm talking about ones who are further down the Trello board that really don't belong in that space. Maybe they didn't quite finish all the other steps.
Okay, well, we could just move those back to the
Yeah.
code interview stage too.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so we just need someone to go through and make sure the cards are in
So
the
we're-
right list, really, now that I
Yeah.
think about it.
And we're thinking the right list for things would be in, I'm just pulled up the Trello board. We're looking at the 2.5 buffer.
Here, actually, I guess we could share a screen so that this is recorded with the meeting.
Yes, that's a very, very good point.
Okay. I think anything here that might not have gone to plain language review, we should check and see, is this ready to go as is or not? And it's kind of merging the plain language review. And in theory, these have had SME review, but I am not confident.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
buffers have had the SME reviews. That's what you're saying.
It should have, because that's the only time it's supposed to move to this buffer.
like the thing that makes me nervous is there were like students, I met with and did an SME review, but they had a lot that needed to be done.
Oh, you don't know. You haven't had a chance to go back and look
So
at it and see if it
I don't
was
know
done
if I
yet.
would say that
Yeah.
that one SME review I would necessarily trust it as.
Or they might have gotten. Yes, the question is what.
Or there
would
were
that
things I
feedback
like
and if it
didn't
was,
that
yeah.
really should be added, but like I didn't want to overwhelm them like a day before it was due or something.
Well, what about these two columns? We've got 2.4 and 2.5.
Well, I mean, so in theory, I think that's okay, right? So what Quentin and I are going to do is we're going to look at those ones that are in that buffer now, determine if we think they should stay there, or really they should be back somewhere earlier. And if we think they should stay there, we're not going to put them right out yet. We're still going to ask you to look at them again.
Should we make a column between 2.1 and 2.2? Maybe that's like needs review or needs rework, maybe.
Oh, to sort of to give it a place to sort of put it back.
Yeah,
moves
so
back.
you know it's not actively being coded, because code interview implies it's being actively worked on, I think.
Does code interview apply it's actively being worked on, or would it make sense to just sort of remove the assign people from those cards?
Is
Oh, I
there
see what you're
is there supposed to be a
saying.
2.1
The thought.
buffer that would
Yeah,
serve
that
this?
Not really, but I mean, this would be adding one. If you're going linearly from you've labeled your card to generating the code, doesn't make sense to put it in a buffer.
Because it just
workflow.
happens. It's not a process. It's either on or off, right? It's done or it's
Yeah.
not done.
So I kind of like Bryce's suggestion where we can intuit the active nature of the card by whether or not there's someone actually assigned to it.
Yeah.
And you could even add a label that's like needs assignment.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back to the status discussion. So, if these are sort of orphaned or inactive.
Dormant.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the main work we need to do is to get one more round of testing of everything, because some of them, as you said, Kate, have gotten a round of testing. They might have moved the card, but it needs to get looked at one more time to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't remember. Some of them were probably pretty close. Some of them weren't, and I don't remember which.
Okay.
If you look at them now, though, the code interview, quite a few of the family ones are still in code interview. They're not.
Maybe they just
And
weren't
if you
moving
look
their
at the
cards.
list under SME, I'm not sure there is. Are there any family law in SME?
Well, what I'm realizing is that I have some cards that are lingering here. Well, at least
Yeah.
one.
So there's no. You see, I don't think there's any.
Shouldn't really be here.
There's no family law in SME. So you don't. So Kate didn't, or in buffer, 2.5 buffer.
Oh, okay.
So I think nothing right now is ready to go. It's still in code review. So it sounds to me like that none of the students that Kate worked with feel that their interview is ready, that has incorporated maybe the issues that you guys worked on.
Yeah.
Or they just
they
didn't
just didn't move it.
Trello.
Yeah.
They didn't move it. Yeah.
I mean, they've all submitted their work, so they must
Yeah.
feel like it's ready to some degree.
Right.
Or that's as far as they got, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember we were telling
Oh,
a lot
you've
of
got
people.
your answer to complaint for divorce in the review with SME.
Okay, so it really sounds like what Quentin and I need to do is to review the students we had and make sure their cards are in the right spots.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing is that I'm going to have a lag on that because I'm going to slowly do that over vacation likely.
Oh, well, I mean, it's the day before vacation. I'm not saying this has to happen.
Yeah.
this- I just
You
wanted
know,
to,
I'm just trying to set other people's expectation. So that means, Kate, you.
I have use it or lose it personal time. I don't care.
Well, my point is, like, you shouldn't jump in and grab stuff yet because it might not be ready to grab. I just want to make sure that we avoid the situation where someone assumes it's in its final place, but maybe it's not in its final place. Which I suppose only is really an error when it's not as, when it's further along than it should be.
Mhm.
so, and are we good about publishing things when they met? Like they fill in the whole thing? Like there are some places where like I know some of my students have spelling errors, for example.
Say that again, Quentin. What'd you say?
All students had spelling
I think we should fix
errors that
those.
were,
Yeah,
so
I think we can do a
I
quick.
would want, yeah, I would fix that for sure.
It
So we
probably
can,
wasn't in the original form, and we're trying to at least replicate those.
yeah. I think we're, like, well, we could just say that we want a level. We could just say we want a level 1.5 or whatever we said in the middle, which is the one that includes language review.
I know it's so hard to want to release it at level 1.
I know, but it is what we pre-committed to doing.
What
It
are
is.
what?
So I
what-
think
what
so.
are these
Yeah. So I
levels
think
again?
things like spelling errors and whatnot would still fall under level 1
Yeah,
because it's just trying to replicate.
Are you saying spelling errors? It would go out with spelling errors?
No,
or
No,
no,
it
no.
wouldn't go out with spelling
Yeah.
errors
Oh, okay.
because that's worse than the original. But if
Yeah,
we,
okay.
assuming the original didn't have to.
So
You
do
can
we
have as many spelling errors as the original one had.
That's right.
So we have. I'm just trying to think because Mike Cronin just did a sanitary code, petition to enforce sanitary
Yeah.
code. He and Maeve and I reviewed that very quickly. I think it's working. I'm happy to look at it one more time. It's not, I don't think it's I mean, maybe Quentin, you want to look at it. One of you guys want to look at it as a housing thing, but I don't think it's that. I think legally it's okay. But I would like to look at it, have a little bit more time to look at it, and then I could move it to whatever, if we have a list that says ready to, install or whatever our list is.
All right. So our ready to publish is also, we still have to push it through testing, right? We still want to do a minimal.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, all right. So a lot of these are just going to be waiting on testing then, because we don't have a testing system set up, do we?
Not really.
Right now.
Yeah, but what we do have is like, these are all mostly one-page forms without branching logic. So they won't require the same kind of testing that we needed for the 209A, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm
So
fine with.
Is board 3 the testing board then?
Board
Yes.
3 is the testing board, yes.
Right.
We never really.
So-
That's the board that needs the most work.
Empty.
Yeah. So a number of these could go to, so I think Mike's could probably go to testing then.
Yeah, and actually he posted it on the testing channel, I think.
Yeah. He's
Where
got
is
a few waiting for testing. He's got petition to enforce sanitary code. And then he's had this motion to dismiss, vacate and dismiss housing that Gordon's been waiting for that to go live, and it
Yeah,
needs
that's
to be
still on
tested.
the other.
I think
That's
Mike's
still on
done
the other
test-
board, right? Is that still on the other board?
on the board 1.
No, I mean on the other Trello boards from like before the
Oh, I see
summer.
what you're saying. Yeah.
'Cause I think he started it back
imagine
then.
because, yeah, so that should be moved, I suppose. If I can get this flippin' interview finished, which I'm going to have to go see a therapist to get this thing finished. I would be happy to take this on to a certain extent because I would use all of them on Mass Legal Help.
Well, here's a question. What do we,
I
yeah,
feel
I
like
know, I
that's my
think-
job.
well, here's, I mean, we have so many housing forms, I can do some, but I'd like to have another housing person look at them. So do we think, Caroline or David, do you think we could impinge on that ecosystem list maybe?
Yeah.
I think we could.
Is that
Definitely.
appropriate to do now before the
Yeah.
holidays? It would be okay, you think? We're only asking to do like
Well,
20.
nobody's going to be working,
Yeah,
but
I
they
think
might be
I think-
interested.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking that it's so close to the holidays. It might be I don't know. That's an interesting
So
one.
at GBLS,
It might get lost is my fear.
holidays off.
Well,
That was my favorite time to work, is that week between Christmas and New
Yeah,
Year.
because,
It's
no,
not
because you're
very
not
busy,
meeting with people. Yeah.
and you can actually get stuff done, right?
The other part of that, I think, you guys, is if we're gonna pull in SMEs from the ecosystem, is that I think we do need to do a teeny bit of Trello training with them, so that they know, just so that they can move one card to another, something, so that they know what to do.
Or would we even be requiring them to interact with Trello, or would we be putting it on the test server and just saying, give feedback on this?
And well, if we sent them Adriana's feedback form, that would be great.
Well, there now is the built-in feedback on testing.
Oh, okay.
I'm just trying to think about it, making it the easiest lift for them as possible and reusing the tools.
Yeah,
we've
no,
built.
definitely. Right. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of out of it when I'm using old tech.
But that is
Not up to date.
That is a question for the group. Like, would we be happy engaging with SMEs without them having to interact with Trello? I'm just interacting with the feedback form at the bottom of a form that was on the testing server. Is that a sufficient interaction, I guess, is the question.
We'd still have to find a way to get whatever they said into Trello or issues or something. We'd
Well,
still
so
have
the
to.
feedback form on the bottom of if they're on the testing server,
Yeah.
clicking on the feedback form automatically makes GitHub issues.
Oh, right. Oh, I'd forgotten that. Yeah. Okay.
And
But
on the correct form.
It doesn't say where it makes GitHub issues, but it doesn't put it where it needs to be in the Trello list or card or anything, right?
No,
Or is
wouldn't
it
move it in a
or
Trello.
is it just going to be in one list? And then when the SME does the feedback form, then we know that, and then we can do something on Trello with it.
Yeah, we could just move it on the Trello.
Yeah, say, hey, I looked at it, it's good, or I looked at it, it's not good, and I made issues for the things that aren't ready.
Yeah, I think that's a more realistic ask.
Yeah.
Of SMEs, especially I feel like the housing folks are all like expecting to get pretty overwhelmed with real work soon.
So that could just be like, look at this form. There's a link at the bottom. Every screen you have an issue, click that link at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then email us when you're done and tell us if you think this is okay as is. It'll be useful as is, even if there's things that you can improve.
So that would go in the email to them.
Yeah. Give them those.
So they email us back when they finished looking at it, and they let us know whether it's good to go or whether it has issues that it shouldn't go live yet.
And yeah, it'd be nice. Maybe I don't have a good sense, but like maybe this is a good time to ask for people to contribute that feedback, because they have random time, and we're not asking a lot of them, I think, to run through it.
Do you want to have a sign up sheet so that people just put their names down next to like a Google sheet? People put their names down next to the interviews they're going to review.
Oh,
because you're going to have to send an email to the ecosystem group, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you have to figure out which interviews are going to whom, or they go to a Google sheet and sign up. In fact, that might be easier, because they go to the Google sheet.
There can be links right there.
There's the interview, there's their name where they sign up. There's a, yes, it's ready to go. Yes, I finished. It's ready to go. It's not ready to go. Does that make, I mean, and their GitHub will be and you still need to, you're saying the interview has a link to the feedback form, which goes,
right.
Yeah.
Every screen.
But your description of the sheet still sounds good, right? So it could be the place where you go, here's the form, here's the link to the form, put your name to claim it so someone else doesn't look at it.
Yeah.
And
do we
when
want
you're done.
Form, or no, we have 30 forms, so that feels like we don't want 2 people per form.
Yeah. I guess the biggest issue, so I think sending this out now is a good idea. I'm just, I know I'm not going to be able to.
Your own
so
students.
This is back to timing.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to get them.
I'm not going to know whether or not to put my students on that list yet until, for a little bit.
So,
but there again, the spreadsheet works well, because we can just put what we have when we have it on there.
Yeah, and I'm just realizing we don't have a list for the form is actually live yet, but I guess maybe it's supposed to be at the end of the testing one. I don't want to misleadingly imply that the form got tested. in
Yeah.
that way. If it didn't, which is true. for
I
some
do
of the-
believe we had discussed having like I think this was a future discussion of like having a live board. But we never
A
actually
fourth
implemented that.
board,
Yeah, which would be like the live, and that would be like the place where iterative
kind of a
improvements would take
tracking,
place.
yeah. Mhm.
Just so we knew what was live and what was, sort of being improved.
And the date it went live, maybe, yeah, so. Mhm.
Well, I think when you move a card, it keeps the history.
Yeah, I
which is
think
nice.
it,
So,
Oh, yeah, of course it does, yeah. Mhm.
okay, so I like this idea of a spreadsheet. We could not just do housing stuff on there. I mean, I think that's the only thing we have need for right now. But in theory, that could be like I like this as a workflow, like if we're trying to engage with a larger community, of
Mhm.
like having a sign up list for forms. And then all you have to do is click on the test, run through it. When you have an issue, click the link at the bottom, fill out a report. And then when you're done, just say you're done. And whether or not it's, good to go or there's showstoppers. Although the feedback on the feedback on the form, the tailored one on testing, asks if things are showstoppers.
does.
So we just really could just say, we could trust it to say, just fill out the bit in the end. You'll be asked whether or not it's a showstopper. And so they could just say, tell us when you're done.
Okay. So, if I understand, I think David and I will go through and make sure forms are on the 2.5 buffer if they're ready to get this last pass review, right? That's basically what we're going to do.
I think so.
And then when they're there, we're going to make sure those are all installed on the test server. And we'll start filling those into a Google Sheet. Maybe we can say, hey, come back and check if you see all the slots are filled, because we're going to be adding new cards.
Yeah. And then we can just re-up that ask at some point when we have more on there as well.
I think when you do the ask, you know how people get really hung up on language, right?
Mhm.
So I think in the ask, you need to say, this is our first draft. We just want to make sure it's legally correct. And it has to be as good as the PDF, explain to people that.
Yeah, there is some of that in the feedback stuff, right? Like how explicit are we at?
I can show you. Let's try it. Let's do it quick.
So I think a lot of this is addressed in the
Oh,
new
okay.
feedback.
I haven't looked at this.
People may not
feedback.
always use it, right? But it's the let's try this one here.
Oh, I see.
So they say they have these 5 levels, and then we also have the ability to let them say it's a language fix. And then they tell us how important the language fix is.
Oh, right. This is good. I haven't seen this.
Yeah. So, I mean, people can, I feel like, tell us all the issues that you see, and then we'll triage them. But
do they have to?
Right.
Okay. So the thing is, they have to do a unique form for each issue, though, right?
That is right. Yeah.
But that makes sense. But that kind of makes sense because they do it from the screen that they're on, right? So you know which screen they're talking about.
And then once they've submitted, you can see what exactly. I mean, they could get to the end and have one general thing they want to tell us, and that's fine. If they do use it screen by screen, that's more helpful for us.
This is great. Did you do this or did Michelle do it?
I mean, I use the language, but I just wired it up to GitHub.
Totally Quentin.
Totally Quentin.
He
Very
made,
cool.
He made the DocumentAssembly ones, yeah.
And there are
Those are
icons. I like the icons.
Yeah, the icons.
Well, I remember seeing the icons at some point. Yeah. So I remember I love those. Those are great.
All right. Well, I guess we have a plan now. So it's really, I think it's just David and I doing the thing. I was like, hey, maybe we can find a czar to do it, but there's not really.
No,
but we do have Kate, your gracious offer to help doing the review. And I think this is the actual, that spreadsheet is a great idea. I think that'll help us organize everything.
Yeah.
And I will, once I get like 4 or 5 up there, maybe I'll focus on doing that today. I will send it out to, I remember if Rochelle copied everybody. But anyway, I'll figure that out. I can email it to Rochelle to pass on maybe. Do you know if
She's
Rochelle-
she's out this week. This
On vacation, but I do. I feel like everyone's email was on there. Let's see.
Okay. And that's easy. And we'll see if people respond and say, yeah, maybe. Okay.
Let's see.
All right. That took 40 minutes. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's what this meeting's for. We just won't get to roles. We'll ask Michelle if she has something.
Not a meeting thing, just stand-up
Uh-huh.
stuff. I mean, not a
Management thing. And then Kate, do you have anything? All right. Then we are done with management. Yay, management. Okay.